NFL draft has ended, which means it's time to gauge how every team fared over the 3-day event. It's never fair to judge a specific pick or draft class before players have ever taken the field or even taken the field. You can assess how teams navigated the process by examining factors such as perceived value, positional value, team needs, and how said needs were addressed. And value is subjective. Teams have their boards, but in determining whether a pick was a reach, a steal, or just right, we'll stick to our own merits. Individual team strategies and franchise trajectories will also be considered. Teams have different methods of approaching the draft and fall in different stages of the rebuilding/contending cycle. So these factors will be included on a franchise-specific basis. Notable draft day trades will also be factored in where applicable. But right now, it's time to give out some grades based on our standards. And all teams, of course, in alphabetical order. Welcome to the recap of the 2024 NFL Draft. Hey there, welcome to another edition of the best damn sports show on YouTube and Streamio.com. Today it is TXN Sports World. I am your host, Anthony Florio, and I am joined by good old MF Michael Fletcher. We are awaiting perhaps the presence of Michael Bullock. If he comes in, we'll catch him up on what he missed. If not, then we hope to have him with us tomorrow night for a very special edition of the Cerebral Smack Talk / Talking Wrestling TXN. 2024 NFL Draft has come and gone last weekend in Detroit. And you know how we do it. For those of you who may be new to our NFL Draft recap shows that we've done all these years, we go in alphabetical order by team, and we run down the draft picks, we give our analysis, and we assign our grades. We give our grades, and we will state what we liked, what we didn't like, and the whole nine. So without any further ado, let's not waste any more time. 32 teams. Let's dive on in. First up, of course, the Arizona Cardinals. And here are their picks. Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver, Ohio State. Darius Robinson, defensive line, Missouri. Max Melton, a cornerback from Rutgers. Trey Benson, running back, Florida State. Isaiah Adams, inside-outside linebacker, Illinois. Tip Ryman, tight end, Illinois. Elijah Jones, a cornerback from Boston College. Dadrian Taylor Demerson, a safety from Texas Tech. Xavier Thomas, an edge from Clemson. Christian Jones, offensive tackle out of Texas. Taywan Palmer, wide receiver, UAB. And Jaden Davis, a cornerback from Miami. The Arizona Cardinals were long pegged as a potential trade-down candidate at number 4. However, Arizona resisted the urge to move and instead took Marvin Harrison Jr., one of the highest rated prospects at any position on any draft board. And Harrison is a slam dunk prospect, a twitched up athlete with polished route running ability and elite ball skills. It is so easy to see how his game translates right away. Could the Cardinals have gotten a haul from a quarterback needy team by trading the 4th overall pick? Maybe. Did they get an instant number 1 receiver who is as bust proof as a prospect can be? Absolutely. Considering Arizona's need for offensive playmakers, it was the perfect choice. Missouri defensive lineman Darius Robinson may have been a reach at number 27, but his ability to fill a variety of roles along the defensive front will aid head coach Jonathan Gannon's defense. Arizona added another piece for Gannon's defense by trading back in round 2 and still securing Rutgers corner Max Melton. While Melton may not start right away, he'll provide depth for a secondary, along with 3rd-round pick Elijah Jones that ranked 30th in net yards allowed per pass attempt last season. Also on day 2, the Cardinals added some balance to their offense by grabbing running back Trey Benson. He'll immediately bring some burst to Arizona's ground game and may eventually replace James Conner as the lead back. Lineman Isaiah Adams and tight end fullback Tip Ryman will further boost the offense around Murray. General manager Monty Ossenfort threw a handful of darts at depth players on day 3. Christian Jones is a developmental offensive tackle who could earn a prominent role in the future, while Xavier Thomas might earn a spot in the pass rush rotation within his first season or two. This was largely a volume draft for the Cardinals. While Ossenfort didn't exactly manage value from start to finish, Arizona had a ton of needs, and with a bevy of prospects, it stands a good chance of filling a few of them before the end of training camp. Harrison was a slam dunk pick at number 4. The rest of the class appears more good than great. My grade for the Arizona Cardinals, B+ is my grade. So not much more to say. MF, welcome to another draft recap. Arizona Cardinals, first up. B+ is my grade. What says you?
B+ is my grade as well. Harrison was the best non-quarterback in the draft class, and number 2 rated overall. While trading down was certainly something to consider, staying put and taking a rare receiver talent was the smartest move for the team. Arizona's draft had plenty of depth. Trade maneuvering gave Ossifer a ridiculous number of picks in this draft and turning them into several important additions. Robinson brings some interior pass rushing upside with a relentless motor. Martin as a corner need with plus athleticism, and Benson offers an intriguing blend of speed and physicality at the running back. Patience will be required for this young team, but the Cardinals was fully headed back in the right direction. B+, Anthony, the next team.
And MF, you'll be leading off on that. Our next team is the Atlanta Falcons. And here's who they selected with their picks. Michael Penix Jr., quarterback, Washington. Ruke Orhorhoro, defensive line from Clemson. Braylon Tice, an edge from Washington. Brandon Dorlus, defensive lineman, Oregon. J.D. Bertrand, linebacker, Notre Dame. Jace McClellan, running back from Alabama. Casey Washington, wide receiver from Illinois. And Zion Logue, a defensive tackle out of Georgia. So with all that, MF, your grade for the Atlanta Falcons, if you will.
What in the world are the Falcons doing? Not only was Penix a major reach, but using the number 8 pick on a quarterback after signing Kirk Cousins feels wildly irresponsible. A top 10 pick is loaded draft, offered them a unique opportunity to add a premium talent and upgrade the roster around their $180 million man. For anyone pointing to the Green Bay Packers model, drafting a quarterback of the future in years, considering Penix is already 24 years old, there's no justification for this bizarre decision. Unfortunately for the Falcon fans, day 2 got off to a rough start as well. Trading away the 3rd round pick and moving up 8 spots to draft Orojo, who is the number 7th ranked interior defensive lineman, was a strange decision as well. Continuing to bolster their pass rush with mid-round picks of value, Truce and Duvis salvage this draft, but it was a tough overlook after Atlanta's initial choices. This was a massive misstep for the Falcons. D is my grade for the Atlanta Falcons. Anthony, it's yours.
What was that grade? D? Is that what I heard?
It was a D, Florio, as dog.
Gotcha. I just wanted to make sure. So, okay. The Atlanta Falcons pulled off the first shocker of the draft, taking Washington quarterback Michael Penix Jr. less than 2 months after signing Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million contract. Penix, like MF said, massive reach. On a positive note, though, Penix is arguably the best deep ball thrower in this class, and he will have time to develop behind Cousins. Still, taking Penix in the top 10 represents a major gamble, one that a team employing a Pro Bowl caliber veteran did not need to make. To open day 2, Atlanta surrendered its 3rd round pick to move up to 35th overall to snag Clemson defensive lineman Ruke Orhorhoro. This was a much more sensible selection for the Falcons, as Orhorhoro's schematic versatility, play strength, and athleticism should make him a quality complement to standout defensive tackle Grady Jarrett. It was still surprising to see Orhorhoro go as highly as he did. In round 3, the Falcons grabbed Washington's Braylon Tice, a player who can help boost the Falcon defense that needed help on the edge. Standing at 6'4" and nearly 275 pounds, Braylon Tice has a great frame for an NFL edge. He puts that to good use against the run and as a pass rusher. General manager Terry Fontenot found a couple of intriguing prospects on day 3, including defensive lineman Brandon Dorlus and wide receiver Casey Washington. Those players may develop enough to make this class look better than it currently does. However, the Penix pick is as questionable a selection as we have seen in recent memory. That is not a knock on Penix as a prospect, but the Falcons signed Cousins to win now. Passing on a player who can help Atlanta do that for a quarterback who might not play for 4 or 5 years does not make sense. Either the Falcons believe they can chase a championship now or they don't. The draft did nothing to clarify how the franchise actually feels. MF, I know this is gonna come as a surprise to you, but I actually agree. Solid D for the Atlanta Falcons. That's exactly what I had. So there we go. Next up, the Baltimore Ravens, and here's who they selected with their picks. Nate Wiggins, cornerback, Clemson. Roger Rosengarten, offensive tackle, Washington. Adisa Isaac, edge, Penn State. Devontae Walker, wide receiver, North Carolina. TJ Tampa, cornerback, Iowa State. Rasheen Ali, running back from Marshall. Devin Leary, quarterback, Kentucky. Nick Samak, inside-outside linebacker, Michigan State. And Sanusi Kane, a safety out of Purdue. The Baltimore Ravens took advantage of an early run on offensive players to help reload their defense by grabbing Clemson quarterback Nate Wiggins at number 30. However, Wiggins and Baltimore passed on higher-rated prospects at the position like Alabama's Kool-Aid McKinstry and Iowa's Cooper DeJean. Perhaps more importantly, the Ravens had more pressing needs along the offensive line after losing John Simpson and Kevin Zeitler in free agency and trading right tackle Morgan Moses. Wiggins will help address a need, but it wasn't Baltimore's biggest, and he was not a premier value at number 30. Baltimore did address its line in round 2, grabbing Washington offensive tackle Roger Rosengarten, while the Ravens may have reached a bit for Rosengarten, he's a versatile lineman who should start sooner than later at right tackle and fills an obvious need. He has enough tools to work his way into a swing tackle role with starting potential down the road. Baltimore came back in round 3 and addressed another major need with Penn State pass rusher Adisa Isaac. He'll at least help fill the vacancy created when Jadeveon Clowney departed in free agency. The 4th-round flyer on Devontae Walker made perfect sense for Baltimore, which did not re-sign Odell Beckham Jr. in free agency. More on that later. While Walker can be inconsistent as a pass catcher, his down-the-field ability is something that opposing defenses must respect. Cornerback TJ Tampa and running back Rasheen Ali were also wise day 3 selections. Ali will provide insurance behind Derrick Henry, and a team with championship aspirations can never have too much cornerback depth. Overall, it was another solid draft for Eric DeCosta and the Ravens. Baltimore could have benefited from addressing the offensive interior early in the draft, but it did get some very good prospects who could become contributors over the next few seasons. The Ravens also avoided making a substantial reach at any one position of need. This class may not completely offset Baltimore's free agent losses, but it should help ensure that the Ravens are back in the Super Bowl conversation for the 2024 season. B+ is my grade for the Baltimore Ravens. So with that, MF, B+ for me. What do you say?
A supremely talented player fell to the Ravens in the 1st round. It's something that yearly ritual at this point. Wiggins at number 30 is an elite athlete with an advanced cover skill that will fill major needs for the Ravens defense. From that point through the 4th round, it was one value pick after another. Rosengarten is a similar potential starter at guard or tackle. Isaac adds the most explosiveness to the pass rush, and Walker is a fascinating fit as a big play target for Lamar Jackson. Tampa who's some of the 1st-round buds heading into the draft, is one of the most impressive value picks in this entire draft. And the Ravens grading out well, again, should come as a big surprise. Anthony, I agree. It is a B+ for the Baltimore Ravens. Anthony, the next team on the list.
You ready for my team, MF? Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's the first of our 3 teams. And it starts off with my team, of course. your 4-time reigning defending AFC Eastern Division champions, the Buffalo Bills. And here's who they selected with their draft picks. Keon Coleman, wide receiver, Florida State. Cole Bishop, a safety out of Utah. Dwayne Carter, defensive lineman from Duke. Ray Davis, running back, Kentucky. Cedric Van Pron Granger, inside-outside linebacker from Georgia. Edifwan Ulofoshio, linebacker, Washington. Javon Solomon, an edge from Troy. Tylen Grable, offensive tackle from UCF. Daquan Hardy, cornerback from Penn State. And Travis Clayton, inside-outside linebacker from the International Pathway Program. Interesting. All right, MF, my team, the Buffalo Bills. How do we do?
Let's be realistic. This hasn't been a fun offseason for Buffalo. Salary cap issue, necessarily a massive exodus of veteran talent, creating the impression that this could be something of a reset year. Trading down with the Kansas City Chiefs of all teams, allowing them to take the most fastest player in the NFL Combine's history, probably did not help matters for Buffalo. But don't let the bad vibes sour your impression of this haul. Each of the 6 picks of the class could be impact players from day one. Coleman is the most likely star of the bunch. Don't sleep on Davis, a Kentucky product, and actually number 2 ranked in the wide receiver, in the running backs in the draft. And Buffalo may not have the star power to contend this year, but it seems like the process is still in place to get back there before too long. It was good, not great, but I will give a solid B for Buffalo. They did a decent enough job. I thought they did very well with their picks. They were value picks, but there was a guy, you were looking for the running back for the future, for the wide receiver. They had one possibly in Worthy, which would have been one of those top-end explosive guys, almost like a Tyreek Hill level type player, but you let Kansas City take him. Why? And of all teams to trade him, why did you trade with Kansas City? That is a bonehead move by Buffalo, but they did a mea culpa, as we would say, when they actually got Kayvon Coleman, the wide receiver from Florida State. Absolutely, that was the mea culpa for your team. How's that going to play out? Well, I guess we'll wait and see. I know some people were hoping and praying for the demise of the Buffalo Bills. Unfortunately, folks, Buffalo definitely took a hit, but they're still going to be right there in the mix for the AFC Eastern Division title, no doubt. So it's a B for me, Anthony. It is yours.
And earlier today, Buffalo adding Chase Claypool to their receiving core. So I'm very pleased about that. Notre Dame guy on my team, I'll take it. So and a great one at that too. But anyways, the Buffalo Bills traded down twice in the first round before ending up with the top selection on day 2. The highlight of the series of moves was turning a 4th round pick into a 3rd rounder. Buffalo had traded its 2024 3rd rounder for cornerback Rasul Douglas. It ended up being a great decision by the Bills, as they still ended up with Florida State receiver Keon Coleman. And he carried a legitimate 1st round grade. Coleman, at 6'3", 213, is a big, capable perimeter target who will help the Bills replace Stephon Diggs. At the end of round 2, Buffalo landed versatile Utah safety Cole Bishop. He fills a need following Jordan Poyer's departure, and with Micah Hyde still unsigned. Buffalo then used the 3rd round selection it gained from the Kansas City Chiefs round 1 trade to add a promising interior defender in Duke's Dwayne Carter. While Carter has some technical issues to sort through, his versatility should add a new dimension to the Bills' defensive line rotation. Carter is scheme versatile, as he can play as a 4-eye or a 5 technique in odd fronts or as a 3 technique in even fronts. General manager Brandon Beane might have found some gems on day 3 as well. Running back Ray Davis can be a high-end complement to James Cook, while Cedric Van Prangranger could develop into a long-term replacement for departed center Mitch Morse. Bean and the Bills purged some expensive veteran talent early in the offseason. While this draft class might not make Buffalo better than it was a year ago, it should help ensure that the team is once again the AFC East favorites. It's a formula that has worked well for the AFC rival Kansas City Chiefs over the past few seasons. Only time will tell if it pays off for the Bills as well. Regardless, credit Buffalo for adding picks, still finding a number one caliber receiver, and finding solid value throughout the weekend. MF, we agree again. Solid B for my Buffalo Bills. Next up, the Carolina Panthers, and here's who they selected with their picks. Xavier Legette, wide receiver, South Carolina. Jonathan Brooks, running back, Texas. Trayvon Wallace, linebacker, Kentucky. Jatavion Sanders, a tight end out of Texas. Chow Smith-Wade, cornerback, Washington State. Jaden Crumedy, defensive lineman, Mississippi State. And Michael Barrett, linebacker, from the college football playoff national champion, Michigan Wolverines. The Carolina Panthers traded into the bottom of round one to ensure they landed a receiver they seemed to cover through the pre-draft process. And Xavier Legette, he said that I've met with the Panthers 5 times. They keep telling me that if I'm sitting at pick 33, they're going to take me. And that's what he told John Crumpler of the Panthers Wire on April 22nd. Unwilling to wait, Carolina made its move on night one. Legette gives quarterback Bryce Young a big perimeter target. He's 6'1", 221, to aid the signal caller's development. Trading up to take Legette gives the Panthers an extra year of team control via the fifth-year option. On day two, the Panthers traded up to make Texas Jonathan Brooks the first running back off the board. While Brooks is coming off a significant knee injury, he should come in as one of Carolina's top options in the ground game. And Brooks is also a capable dual threat who will make life easier on Bryce Young as a runner and outlet receiver. Carolina likely reached a bit for Kentucky linebacker Trayvon Wallace, who lacks the polish teams usually covet on day two. However, Wallace has the athletic ability needed to thrive in the NFL and was clearly a traits-based pick. On day three, the Panthers likely found a future offensive contributor in Jatavion Sanders. Cornerback Chow Smith-Wade may provide more immediate value. Smith-Wade was rated as the draft's top slot corner, and he should provide immediate depth on the back end of the defense. Carolina desperately needed to find new support pieces for Young. General manager Dan Morgan did a solid job of doing just that, especially considering he entered the weekend without a first-round selection. Brooks can become the long-term running back that Carolina currently lacks. The investment in Miles Sanders has yet to pay off, while Legette can develop into Young's number one receiver of the foreseeable future. My grade for the Carolina Panthers, C+. C+ is my grade for the Carolina Hurricanes. So with that, MF, I got C+ for Carolina. What's your grade? MF, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, it kind of froze up for me to get what I needed to get. All right, Carolina. Carolina was far more measured in its first draft under the new regime. Best example, being able to move up to the 2025 second-round draft pick from the Rams, able to drop back 13 spots to in this year's second round. It's not hard to love for a team selection, but Legette is a physical, athletic receiver who could become the top-rated running back, who is a do-it-all weapon and a major upgrade than Miles Booby Sanders and Chuba Hubbard. Wallace is one of the most exciting linebackers in the class, and Sanders rounds out an impressive trio of weapons added on the offense. Panthers could be on the rise if this class isn't any indication on how the new leadership will be doing business. A solid B+ for the Carolina Panthers. Anthony, next team.
And it's the team that everyone is talking about. Many are calling them perhaps the biggest winners, or one of the biggest winners, if not the biggest winners of the NFL draft. Our dear friend Matt Ward's team, the Chicago Bears. They had the number one overall pick, and they selected Caleb Williams, the quarterback out of USC. Wide receiver, Rome Odunze from Washington. Offensive tackle, Kieran Amagadaji from Yale. He's an offensive tackle. Tory Taylor, the punter out of Iowa. And Austin Booker, the edge of Kansas. MF, there's no question the Chicago Bears, one of the big winners. The question is, were they the biggest winners?
Williams is arguably the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. Now, while Justin Fields probably didn't get a fair shake, taking advantage of this opportunity was absolutely a no-brainer. Chicago has already done a phenomenal job building a foundation for the upcoming rookie quarterback. Landing as Ronnie Awuzie, the wide receiver from Washington at number 9 was the cherry on top. Don't overlook the addition of a potential starting running left tackle in Amarage either. Using the last 4 picks on a punter, it's a little bit of an odd move, but it doesn't take away from a franchise-changing draft haul. The Bears are back, are so back. Matt Ward, not the ultimate winner, but definitely in my top 3 of winners. Number 2 overall, A is the rating for the Chicago Bears. There was one team I believe actually did better than Chicago.
Okay.
Anthony, it is yours.
I'm very curious to find out who that is. I think I might know who it is, but we'll find out in a bit. The Chicago Bears kicked off the 2024 draft with the selection most expected. There's no guarantee that USC's Caleb Williams will end up being the best quarterback taken in this class. However, he was widely viewed as a can't-miss option with a high floor and an even higher ceiling. The arm talent oozes off the film, and he is a special playmaker when things break down. Williams is also more put together as a processor than his playing style suggests, even if he still needs work. Like the Cincinnati Bengals did with Joe Burrow a couple of years ago, Chicago did the smart thing by staying put at number 1 and getting its guy. Chicago came back and grabbed Washington receiver Rome Odunze with the 9th pick. He's a tremendous value, and he will help ensure that Williams has no shortage of playmakers in his rookie campaign. Odunze joins DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, and Keenan Allen in a suddenly scary Bears receiving corps. Kieran Amagadaji is a bit of a project coming out of Yale, but he has the baseline athletic ability and instincts to provide depth at guard and tackle early and potentially push for a starting role within his first couple of years. Given Chicago's investment in Williams, investing in the offensive line was the right day 2 decision for the Bears. While fans probably won't get excited about a punter pick, adding Tory Taylor in round 4 was a brilliant move. Taylor was one of the most valuable players for Iowa this past season, and he can be a field-flipping difference maker for Chicago at the next level. Taylor was slated to be Chicago's final selection of 2024, but the Bears traded back in to take Kansas edge rusher Austin Booker. He'll help bolster a pass rush that took off after the 2023 trade acquisition of Montez Sweat. Poles didn't enter the draft with a high volume of picks, but it's hard not to love what he did over the weekend. Odunze puts the finishing touches on the best supporting cast Chicago has given a quarterback in recent memory. Williams should put an end to the franchise's quarterback futility. I agree with you, MF. It's a solid A for me as well when it comes to the Chicago Bears. Next up, the Cincinnati Bengals. And here's who they selected with their picks. Amarius Mims, offensive tackle, Georgia. Chris Jenkins, defensive lineman from the champion Michigan Wolverines. Jermaine Burton, wide receiver, Alabama. McKinley Jackson, defensive lineman, Texas A&M. Eric All, tight end, Iowa. Josh Newton, cornerback, TCU. Tanner McLaughlin, tight end, Arizona. Edge, Cedric Johnson, an edge out of Ole Miss. Dejon Anthony, a safety out of Ole Miss. And Matt Lee, inside-outside linebacker from Miami. The Cincinnati Bengals have needed to improve their offensive line ever since they took Joe Burrow first overall in the 2020 draft. Since then, Burrow has been sacked 148 times in only 52 regular season games. Taking Georgia offensive tackle Amarius Mims in the middle of round 1 was a logical move for the Bengals. They added Trent Brown to play right tackle in free agency, but Brown doesn't figure to be a long-term answer. Mims, while experienced, has the size. He's 6'8", 340, and upside needed to eventually lock down one of Cincinnati's lines. Mims was it wasn't much of a reach, and it was the perfect meeting of prospect and need. Just don't expect Mims to make a massive impact in 2024. Second round pick Chris Jenkins is much more likely to be an immediate difference maker. The value wasn't great, but he'll boost a defensive line rotation that lost DJ Reader in free agency. Third round pick McKinley Jackson will add another valuable piece to Cincinnati's interior defensive rotation. Early in round 3, Cincinnati grabbed a potential replacement for wide receiver T. Higgins, who is set to play on the franchise tag this season. Alabama's Jermaine Burton may not be a complete receiver right now, but he can help the Bengals attack downfield. The offense should not run through him, but his ability to win vertically, find the ball in the air, and run a full route tree will make him a valuable piece. Getting Eric All in round 4 was a particularly smart move for the Bengals, who have struggled to find consistency at the position. All carries injury concerns, but he's been a quality blocker and receiver when healthy. The same can be said for Tanner McLaughlin, who was well worth a late flyer. As is often the case for the Bengals, Cincinnati largely approached the draft with the future in mind. That plan has helped the Bengals to maintain competitiveness over the last few years, but it's hard to believe it will make them more legitimate contenders in 2024. If this class pays off for Cincinnati, it's likely to happen a year or two down the road. Solid B is my grade for the Cincinnati Bengals. So MF, what says you?
All right. Upside was the theme for the Bengals draft. Mims, most notably, has an all-pro potential at offensive tackle. There was some risk in such making this pick this early, as he's making the big jump to the NFL with marginal starting experience, but he's more than polished enough than you might expect. It's tough to find a lineman at the combination of his size and athleticism. Jenkins is also a great athlete that could develop into a pass rushing skills that to complement his skill set as a run defender. And Burton is more explosive than the Bengals receiving core, so don't sleep at all. Either he is an athletic target that could make plays after the catch, earning the number 4 spot in many of the tight end rankings, of course, from a lot of the prognosticators. You could talk about Mel Kiper, whatever. This was a solid draft haul for Cincinnati. It was a solid B for me as well, Anthony. So it's all yours.
And we go to the other Ohio team, the Cleveland Browns, and here's who they selected with their picks. Mike Hall Jr., defensive lineman from the Ohio State University. Zach Zinter, outside linebacker from your national champion Michigan Wolverines. Jamari Thrash, wide receiver from Louisville. Nathaniel Watson, linebacker, Mississippi State. Miles Harden, cornerback, South Dakota. And Joanne Briggs, a defensive line from Cincinnati. MF, Cleveland Browns draft grade. What do you got?
The Browns were limited by not having a day 1 pick. Yet again, there was a lot to like about their second rounder. Hall is a very impressive interior pass rusher who was awarded the number 3 defensive lineman in many of the projected rankings. Depth additions were the name of the game. From the point forward, and Zeller is particularly an intriguing addition for the future in that regard. The only criticism that the Browns could have been more aggressive in pursuing a much-needed upgrade at the linebacker spot, and for the mere fact that they picked an Ohio State guy over a Michigan guy early in the draft, I'm giving it a C+. But no. It is a C+ for the draft itself. I'm just using a little flavor content because of my pure disdain for Ohio State, and Florio knows why. But I shouldn't be that little about it, because who's wearing the ring? Who's the national champion, baby? Florio, it's yours.
And who finished the story in January?
Absolutely.
Yep. Great. Definitely one of our favorite moments of the year so far. No doubt about that. But what a thrill that was for me to call them at the national champions. That's a thrill I'm going to take with me for a long time. Anyways, the Cleveland Browns didn't have a first round pick, which was the final first round selection Cleveland owed to the Houston Texans for the Deshaun Watson trade. With their first pick in the draft, Cleveland grabbed Ohio State defensive lineman Mike Hall Jr. This may have been a bit of a reach. However, he can play a prominent role in Jim Schwartz's defensive front as an interior rusher. Hall has the get-off agility and footwork to get penetration when slanting and has shown the strength to bench press offensive linemen and get extension when taking on blocks straight up. Schwartz loves a deep defensive line rotation, and Hall can play an immediate role as a rookie. Offensive line depth was a major issue for the Browns in 2023, so grabbing an offensive lineman made perfect sense. While Michigan's Zach Zinter is coming off a significant leg injury, he's a pro-ready player who should provide immediate depth along Cleveland's interior, if fully recovered as a rookie. Zinter may also fit into Cleveland's long-term plans at guard, as standout Joel Bitonio will turn 33 in October and is only under contract through 2025. General Manager Andrew Berry threw yet another dart at the receiver position by taking Louisville's Jamari Thrash in round 5. He's a polished receiver with reliable hands who can contribute as a 4th or 5th receiver, but is not likely to become a star. The Browns, of course, lack reliable options after Amari Cooper and have continually added to the position in an effort to find it. Thrash represents a great value in round 5. Don't be surprised if he overtakes recent draft picks like David Bell and Cedric Tillman Jr. on the depth chart sooner than later. Cleveland didn't have a ton of draft capital, and its 2024 class won't generate many headlines. However, Barry and the Browns managed to come away with a handful of players who can stick with the franchise long term. A slight disagreement here. B- is my grade for the Cleveland Browns. So with that being said, let's move on to our next team. It is the Dallas Cowboys, and here's who they selected with their picks. Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle, Oklahoma. Marshawn Kneeland, an edge from Western Michigan. Cooper Beebe, inside-outside linebacker, Kansas State. Marist Liufau, linebacker, Notre Dame. Kalen Carson, cornerback, Wake Forest. Ryan Flowerny, a wide receiver from Southeast Missouri State. Nathan Thomas, inside-outside linebacker from Louisiana. And Justin Rogers, a defensive line from Auburn. Give the Dallas Cowboys credit for trading back in the first round, getting an extra day 2 pick in the process, and still filling a vital need. Oklahoma's Tyler Guyton might need some time to develop, but he has the potential to become Tyron Smith's long-term replacement at left tackle. Guyton is a young, inexperienced, and green tackle prospect with elite physical tools and flashes of dominance that can get him on the field right away. Getting Guyton at number 29 represents good value and will prevent Dallas from moving Tyler Smith back to left tackle, where he had his fair share of struggles before settling in at left guard. In round 2, the Cowboys grabbed Western Michigan's Marshawn Kneeland. While Kneeland may not have the athletic traits needed to become a dominant edge rusher at the pro level, he does help fill a positional need. Dallas lost rotational pass rushers Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler Jr. in free agency. Notre Dame linebacker Marist Liufau probably isn't refined enough to fill a prominent role right away, but he'll provide early depth to a linebacker core that had its fair share of issues last season. Like some of Dallas's early 2023 draft selections, notably Mazie Smith and Luke Schoonmaker, the Liufau pick seems to be a bet on upside, as does the 5th round pick of Kalen Carson. After watching Dallas draft primarily for the future in 2023 and get little out of its rookie class, this was a refreshing change of pace. The Cowboys took serious swings at their offensive line, which quickly became the team's biggest question mark after early free agency. It would have been wise to do a little more to address a mediocre run defense, and the Cowboys still lack a starting caliber running back and reliable receiver depth. Viewing this in terms of being a quote-unquote all-in draft for the 2024 season, though, Dallas could have done much worse. B- is my grade for the Dallas Cowboys. So with that, MF, it's yours.
All right, so it is Dallas now. All right, give me 1 second. All right, here we go. Dallas. Let's see what we got here. All right, so Upgrading in the trenches may not be a sexy pick, loading up on playmakers, but it was extremely necessary for the Cowboys roster. Guyton is an outstanding athlete who is extremely high ceiling as a long-term replacement for Tavon Smith at the left tackle. Adding in BB, a college guard who fits as a center between Zach Martin and Tyler Smith. That's 2 day one starters from up front. Don't sleep on Keelan either. The Western Michigan project is powerful, but a pass rusher that will fit nicely alongside Micah Parsons. Yes, the grade is a solid B for the Dallas Cowboys. So, Anthony, it is yours.
Okay, and next up, these next couple of picks are gonna be favorites within some members of my family. And this next pick, I want to give a special shout out to my Uncle Ed. He just celebrated a birthday yesterday. So, Uncle, this one's for you. It's your team, the Denver Broncos, Uncle Ed's favorite team. And here's who they selected with their picks. Bo Nix, quarterback, Oregon. Jonah Ellis, edge for Utah. Troy Franklin, wide receiver, Oregon. Chris Abrams-Drain, cornerback, Missouri. Audric Estime, running back, Notre Dame. Devon Villay, wide receiver from Utah. And Nick Gargiolo, outside linebacker for South Carolina. So, MF, good news or bad news for Uncle Ed and the Denver Broncos?
First off, happy birthday, Uncle Ed. Hope you had a great day. My friend, I come delivering a lump of coal in your Christmas stocking with I'm afraid I got some bad news, laddie. Look, we understand the Broncos needed a quarterback. We agree. But taking Bo Nix at number 12 was the next level of desperation. But the Denver did some good things later in the draft, including Franklin in the 4th round and adding receiver with some first-round hype. But still, it's tough to look at this class with anything but skepticism. What the Broncos did, what they did at the top, was a very strange start to the Sean Payton era that continues. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to be really harsh. A D+ for the Denver Broncos. Anthony, it is yours.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay. This is an agree to disagree. I'm not going to be as harsh as MF on when it comes to my grade, but let me explain first. With 5 quarterbacks going in the top 10, the Denver Broncos decided to reach for Oregon signal caller Bo Nix. In a vacuum, it's a surprise because Nix simply isn't a first-round caliber prospect, and he carries plenty of risk. Nix will ultimately be a dice roll on athleticism and accuracy. With that said, it's a little worrisome that Nix is still unrefined in some areas as an older prospect with a ton of games under his belt. Given the lack of quarterback talent after the top 6, though, flipping the switch here made some sense. That doesn't mean that it was a valuable pick or one that will ensure that Denver turns the proverbial corner. Utah's Jonah Ellis was the 6th-ranked edge rusher. Let me rephrase that. Jonah Ellis represents a far better value for the Broncos. He easily could have gone higher in the draft order, and he fills a major need for the Denver defense. The Broncos have not had a high-end sack artist since trading Bradley Chubb. Ellis might not be that right away, but he has the speed and first step needed to make an immediate impact and then develop from there. It wouldn't be a complete shock to see Ellis lead the Broncos in sacks as a rookie. Getting Troy Franklin in round 4 was also a bargain for the Broncos, as the Oregon product could easily start in Denver's offense as a rookie. He can stretch the field and already has established chemistry with Bo Nix. General manager George Patton ended a couple of intriguing players on day 3, Audric Estime, I could tell you everything. I could tell you everything you need to know about this guy because, hello, Notre Dame guy. Could be a very fun power back, but everything will hinge on his first selection. Nix was drafted too highly. The fact that Denver felt pressured to get its guy doesn't change that fact. Head coach Sean Payton may well develop him into a capable starter, but that doesn't mean that taking Nix in the top half of round 1 was the right decision. I'm going to be a little more generous on the grade. MF, I think that was a little too harsh, but for me, C+. Slight disagreement. It's a C+ for the Denver Broncos. And now we move on to my older brother Nick's team, the team that, won the hearts of the entire nation, let alone the world. A team that everybody, including even myself, was rooting for. The Detroit Lions. And here's who they selected with their picks. Terrion Arnold, cornerback, Alabama. Enos Rakestraw Jr., cornerback, Missouri. Giovanni Manu, offensive tackle from British Columbia. Sione Vaki, safety/running back from Utah. Makai Wingo, defensive lineman, LSU. And Christian Mahogany, inside-outside linebacker from Boston College. The Detroit Lions flipped the third-round pick they acquired in the T.J. Hockenson trade in a deal with Dallas to land Alabama cornerback Terrion Arnold. Corner was a substantial need for the Lions, who finished the 2023 season ranked 27th in passing yards allowed. With defensive backs falling, Detroit decided not to wait and landed the second-ranked corner. While the Lions did have to give up a valuable day 2 selection to land Arnold, it's hard to criticize the decision. Arnold has the potential to be a reliable starting corner for the long term. A complete and well-rounded defender, there isn't much he can't do. Detroit doubled up at the cornerback position by grabbing Missouri's Enos Rakestraw Jr. at the bottom of round 2. Rakestraw will partner with Arnold in trade acquisition Carlton Davis to help turn around the Lions' biggest 2023 weakness. The Lions failed to reach the Super Bowl because their defense couldn't close out the NFC Championship game. Detroit has recognized that and made some serious investments in the cornerback room. Detroit traded the 2025 third-round pick to move into round 4 and grab British Columbia tackle prospect Giovanni Manu. While Manu will likely be a project, he has the size, 6'8" and 352, and physical upside to be a future key contributor. The Lions show that they clearly trust their own evaluation process by trading a future pick for an international player and then announcing former Utah safety Sione Vaki as a running back. Given the results from last year's class, it's hard to doubt Detroit. The bottom line is that Detroit entered draft weekend with one obvious need. General manager Brad Holmes addressed it with his first 2 picks without reaching for prospects who cannot contribute early. The rest of Detroit's draft wasn't exactly filled with value, but again, the Lions are adamant about trusting their board. I know we're probably going to have a disagreement on this grade, and I know this is a bit of an overrate, but this is my story, and I'm sticking to it. A- for the Detroit Lions. So with all that being said, MF, Detroit, we all know, sentimental favorite, one of the sentimental favorites, if not the sentimental favorite from last year. Went on this amazing run. Should have went to the Super Bowl, but unfortunately they couldn't close it out in the title game. But I say A-. So how we feeling about, the team that was unofficially America's team last season?
Believe it or not, the Lions are quietly becoming one of the league's premier organizations. Detroit entered the draft with a few cornerback upgrades away from taking an important step on the defense. Despite picking late, Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell somehow came away with Arnold and Rakestraw, majority ranked as the number 1 and number 6 cornerbacks, respectively. Both players should be immediate starters, upgrading one of the few unsettling positions on the roster. The mid-round weirdness, trading next year's 3rd and 4th in to move up for Manu and Vaki, brief gives us some pause, but Detroit came back with Wingo, the 4th best defensive lineman in the 6th round, and a dream start in the draft that could potentially make their chances of making a good on this Super Bowl window that they now have. Anthony, they were my number 3 team in the entire draft with an A-. I agree with you. Remember, I said there was a top 3. Number 3, Detroit. Number 2, Chicago. Number 1, you're going to have to wait and find out who that is later on tonight. It's yours.
Indeed. All right. And we stay in the NFC North. Next up is the Green Bay Packers. And here's who they selected with their picks. Jordan Morgan, offensive lineman, Arizona. Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker, Texas A&M. Javon Bullard, safety from Georgia. Marshawn Lloyd, running back, USC. Tyron Hopper, linebacker from Missouri. Evan Williams, a safety from Oregon. Jacob Monk, inside-outside linebacker from Duke. Keaton Oladapo, safety, Oregon State. Travis Glover, offensive tackle from Georgia State. Michael Pruitt, quarterback from Tulane. And Kalen King, a cornerback from Penn State. All right, MF, your grade for the Green Bay Packers.
Already a legitimate contender in the NFC, the Packers earned this week with a fairly clear need to address. The only time will tell how the picks work out long term, but this was a masterful effort in getting everything they needed completed right now. Morgan is a versatile lineman who can contribute either on the tackle or in guard at the next level. Connor steps in as a long-term running back mate for Quincy Walker, while Bullard is a solid addition in the safety spot, along with free agent addition Xavier McKinney. Lloyd seems to be a luxury pick after signing Josh Jacobs, but the Packers will find a role for him. Such impressive skill, playmaking abilities. The Green Bay Packers haul seemed unspectacular on paper, but yet had a very strong week for Brian Gutekunst and his staff. It's a B+ for the Green Bay Packers. Anthony, it is yours.
The Green Bay Packers may have reached a bit when they took Arizona offensive lineman Jordan Morgan with the 25th pick. Morgan was one many expected to move inside at the next level. His questionable range and middling redirect skills will be difficult to overcome on an island against NFL edge rushers, but he could make it work inside a run-fast, play-action-based scheme that limits those exposures. However, Morgan gained plenty of seasoning as a 3-year starter at left tackle in college, and he'll give Green Bay a chance to find David Bakhtiari's long-term replacement. If Morgan doesn't pan out there, the Packers might have their replacement for guard John Runyon instead. In round 2, Green Bay made Texas A&M's Edgerrin Cooper the first linebacker off the board. Cooper, top-rated linebacker, should help reload a Packer defense that parted with Devondre Campbell earlier this offseason. Georgia safety Javon Bullard, solid value at number 58, and will help shore up the back end with free agent addition Xavier McKinney. Marshawn Lloyd is a far more explosive running back than A.J. Dillon and will give Green Bay some quality depth behind free agent addition Josh Jacobs. Tyron Hopper will bring additional depth to the second level of the defense. General manager Brian Gutekunst did a fine job of finding value on day 3, especially with the selection of Oregon State safety Keaton Oladapo. He was the 35th ranked overall prospect, and he will partner with fellow rookies Bullard, Evan Williams, and the free agent addition McKinney to help solidify the back end of Green Bay's defense. Michael Pratt is an interesting developmental quarterback who will provide some insurance behind Jordan Love. After watching numerous starting quarterbacks go down in 2023, it was a sensible flyer. Did Gutekunst get the most value with each of his selections? Probably not. But he did manage to address most of Green Bay's most notable needs. It's a solid B for me for the Green Bay Packers. Next up, the Houston Texans. And here's who they selected. Kamari Lassiter, cornerback, Georgia. Blake Fisher, offensive tackle, Notre Dame. No relation to Bullock, but it's Kalen Bullock, a safety from USC. Cade Stover, tight end from The Ohio State University. Jamal Hill, linebacker, Oregon. Johar Jordan, running back from Louisville. Solomon Byrd, an edge from USC. Marcus Harris, a defensive lineman from Auburn. and Ladarius Henderson, inside-outside linebacker from your college football playoff national champion Michigan Wolverines. The Houston Texans didn't make a selection on opening night after trading the 23rd pick to the Minnesota Vikings pre-draft. However, Houston may still have landed a future standout by grabbing Georgia cornerback Kamari Lassiter in the second round. With good play speed and length, he's 6 feet, 186, and schematic versatility, Lassiter should be a fine fit and an early contributor in Coach DeMeco Ryans' defense. A well-rounded player, he will definitely be selected in the earlier rounds. He has the versatility to play in multiple schemes and does a very good job of defending the run. Lassiter should quickly aid a defense that ranked 27th in net yards per pass attempt last season. Also in round 2, Houston grabbed a developmental tackle in Notre Dame's Blake Fisher. He'll provide immediate depth and perhaps a long-term solution at right tackle in front of budding star quarterback C.J. Stroud. In round 3, Houston traded up to grab USC safety Kalen Bullock. This was a smart move considering the injuries and inconsistencies the Texans experienced at the safety position in 2023. Bullock was a tremendous value in round 3. Early on day 3, Houston landed one of the top tight ends in the draft in Ohio State's Cade Stover. While the Texans don't need a receiving tight end after re-signing Dalton Schultz, Stover is a physical and sure-handed pass catcher who will give C.J. Stroud another capable target and can eventually replace Dalton Schultz long-term. Jawar Jordan is a talented running back prospect with starting potential who might replace trade acquisition Joe Mixon in the not-too-distant future. General manager Nick Caserio showed last year that he has an eye for players who fit DeMeco Ryans' team. He found a few more of those prospects over the weekend, and the Texans exit the draft with few obvious needs. B+ is my grade for the Houston Texans. So not much more to say here. MF, it's already been a big offseason for Houston, getting Joe Mixon, getting Stephon Diggs, and now with this draft class. So your grade for the Houston Texans.
All right. Trading out of the first round got the Texans what they needed to acquire Stephon Diggs. The draft haul itself wasn't nearly as exciting as the rest of the offseason, but don't be surprised that this group will help take another step forward. Lassiter was a smart player and put together a productive career in Georgia and could be a day one starter for DeMeco Ryans' defense in the slot. Fisher is one of the more interesting mid-round offensive line prospects that could compete for a start in either guard or tackle. Bullock is a gifted coverage player deep in the middle. Slight disagreement, Anthony. I'm giving it a B-, and we move on to the next team.
We're going to be staying within the AFC South for a little bit. We just started with the Houston Texans, and we move on now to the Indianapolis Colts. And for their picks, they selected Laiatu Latu, an edge from UCLA, Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver from Texas, Matt Gonsalves, inside-outside linebacker from Pittsburgh, Tenor Bordolini, inside-outside linebacker, Wisconsin, Anthony Gould, a wide receiver from Oregon State, Jalen Carlisle, safety from Missouri, Jalen Simpson, another safety out of Auburn, Micah Abraham, cornerback from Marshall, and Jonah Laulu, defensive lineman from Oklahoma. MF, Indianapolis, how did they do?
Indy took advantage of the early run on the offensive players by making Latu the first defensive off the board at number 15. The UCLA star was the number 1 edge rusher on many of the prospect boards, and we could see him as an early candidate for Defensive Rookie of the Year. The high-value addition continues in round 2 when the Colts ended up with Mitchell as he slid to number 52. A smooth route runner with an intriguing blend of size and speed, the Texas star could be one of the biggest deals in the draft. Corners should have been more of a priority for the Colts, perhaps instead of doubling up on the offensive line depth in the middle rounds, but the return overall was pretty strong. It was a B+ for me. So, Anthony, it is yours.
The Indianapolis Colts made UCLA's Laiatu the first defensive prospect off the board on night 1. While Laiatu wasn't the top-ranked edge rusher, it's hard to argue with the pick. Latu carries some health concerns after being medically retired at the University of Washington, but he's been healthy since and is loaded with playmaking potential. There aren't many draft prospects who have Latu's combination of size, athleticism, and quickness. That helps him as a pass rusher, as he can win with both finesse and power moves. Last season, he tallied 13 sacks and 21.5 tackles for loss. He'll quickly help boost the Colts defense that ranked 28th in points allowed last season. After trading down in round 2, the Colts added Texas wide receiver Adonai Mitchell. The former Longhorn combines good size, 6'2", 205, with explosive ability, and will give second-year quarterback Anthony Richardson another quality target in the passing game. The Colts have struggled to solidify the interior of their offensive line in recent years, and they took another shot at filling the need by grabbing Pittsburgh's Matt Gonsalves. While Gonsalves isn't a high-level athlete, he was a decent floor due to sound technique and good play strength. At worst, Gonsalves should be a dependable backup for the next several seasons. He and fourth-round pick Tanor Bordellini should provide a notable boost to Indy's offensive interior. Anthony Gould will give Richardson another ancillary target and can be a fine gadget player in Coach Shane Steichen's offense. However, he's most likely to provide early value as an explosive return specialist and special teams ace. General manager Chris Ballard managed to find value throughout the draft while addressing a couple of key needs early. Indianapolis may have preferred to land one of the top pass catchers at the very top of the draft. However, it still did a good job of improving Richardson's supporting cast while reloading a defense that ranked 28th in points allowed last season. This is one of my winners of the draft. Slight disagreement from MF. I actually have a solid A for the Indianapolis Colts. So, and again, staying in the AFC South, the Jacksonville Jaguars up next with their picks. They selected Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver from LSU, Mason Smith, a defensive lineman from LSU, Jarrian Jones, a cornerback from Florida State, Javon Foster, offensive tackle, Missouri, Jordan Jefferson, defensive lineman from LSU, DeAndre Prince, a cornerback from Mississippi, Keelan Robinson, running back from Texas, Cam Little, a kicker from Arkansas, and Miles Cole, an edge from Texas Tech. The Jacksonville Jaguars desperately needed to upgrade their receiving core after losing Calvin Ridley in free agency. LSU's Brian Thomas Jr. might not be a finished product, but he's an explosive playmaker with the size at 6'3", 209, and speed to become a future number 1 target. Thomas has the big play potential to be a weapon in the NFL. It's hard to find players with his size, speed, and instant burst. Jacksonville did not have to move up to land the 4th-ranked receiver. Instead, it traded back and added pick number 167, a 2025 3rd-round pick, and a 2025 4th-round pick. Thomas will join a receiver room that now features Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and free agent addition Gabe Davis. He may experience his fair share of rookie ups and downs, but he should make quarterback Trevor Lawrence better in the long run. In round 2, Jacksonville added to its defensive front with LSU's Mason Smith. He'll join an increasingly impressive group that includes Trayvon Walker and Eric Armstead. Grabbing him, though, didn't address an obvious need. Getting 3rd-round cornerback Jarrian Jones did. Jones is a fast, athletic corner with positional versatility who could push for the starting nickel job as a rookie. He'll boost a secondary that ranked 26th in passing yards allowed last season. General manager Trent Baalke took a couple of interesting flyers on day 3. DeAndre Prince might develop into a contributor in the secondary, while Keelan Robinson could become a change-of-pace alternative behind Travis Etienne Jr. However, it felt like the Jaguars reached for quite a few prospects after round 1, and it would have been nice to see the offense come away with a more polished receiver who can complement Thomas's explosiveness. In all, this feels like a risky draft class for Jacksonville, and the roster doesn't feel stronger than it was at the end of last season. B- is my grade for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, not much more to say. MF, your grade for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Thomas' versatile speed makes him a great fit for the rest of the Jaguars offense. But it's fair to assume that the Jaguars would target a receiver at some point after losing Calvin Ridley. We also like the 2nd-round pick, as Smith flashes of brilliance at LSU hints that he'll be an incredible NFL upside. But waiting until the 3rd round to address the cornerback spot, easily the biggest need on the roster, was a puzzling decision. Jacksonville could have had its pick of either Tyron Arnold or Nate Wiggins at 23, but it seems like yet an example of the Jaguars missing out on clear opportunities to improve their chances in competing in a very crowded AFC playoff picture. Slight disagreement, Anthony. I got to give it a C plus for the Jacksonville Jaguars. On to the next squad.
Well, it's the team that America loves to hate right now. You're reigning, defending, undisputed, back-to-back Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. And here's who they selected with their picks. Xavier Worthy, wide receiver, Texas. Kingsley Sumataya, offensive tackle, BYU. Jared Wiley, a tight end out of TCU. Jaden Hicks, safety, Washington State. Hunter Nourzad, offensive lineman from Penn State. Kamal Hadan, cornerback, Tennessee. And CJ Hansen, inside-outside linebacker from Holy Cross. MF, Super Bowl champs, back-to-back Super Bowl champs. How'd they do?
All right. Worthy being connected to the Chiefs in the pre-draft process felt like everyone was willing to will it into existence. Sure enough, the Super Bowl champions and the quarterback and the best quarterback on the planet came away with the first round with the fastest receiver in the NFL Combine history. Samata is also another player connected to Kansas City as a possible second-round pick. So landing him in to fill the team's need at left tackle makes the early selections be more impressive. Keep an eye on Hicks, too. The Washington State product ranked on number 2 in the safeties in a lot of people's mock drafts. He could easily push as a key role sooner rather than later. This was another draft haul that will make you wonder why the Kansas City Chiefs is the best team in the NFL and why other teams allow this to happen. It's a solid B plus for the reigning and defending world champions. Anthony, it is yours.
Did the Kansas City Chiefs overpay by trading up to take Texas receiver Xavier Worthy with a 28th pick? Maybe. However, it made perfect sense for Kansas City. Worthy set a combine record with a 4.21 second 40-yard dash, and his quickness translates to the playing field. He'll give Patrick Mahomes the sort of game-changing deep threat he has not had since Tyreek Hill was traded to Miami 2 years ago. Deep threat ability isn't all Worthy brings to the table, though. His ability to separate on underneath routes will help open up Coach Andy Reid's play-calling options. In Worthy, Marquise Brown, and Travis Kelce, Andy Reid will be able to create mismatches all over the field. Kansas City traded up one spot at the end of round 2 to land a potential future starting left tackle in BYU's Kingsley Sumataya. Sumataya has the physical tools of a starting tackle with an unrefined skill set that is built on flashes rather than proven consistency. But he'll be only 21 when he gets drafted, and he has the runway to add polish to his game. Kansas City may still bring back Donovan Smith, who remains unsigned. However, Sumataya has a real chance to become the Chiefs' left tackle of the future. TCU's Jared Wiley was a great get at the end of round 4. He has the speed and after-the-catch ability to give the Chiefs another explosive option at tight end behind Travis Kelce. Other day 3 selections, like those of safety Jaden Hicks and lineman Hunter Nourzad, will help fill out the back end of a talented Kansas City depth chart. General manager Brett Veach was aggressive early in the draft, but he landed a handful of prospects with the potential to become long-term pieces of Kansas City's championship puzzle. Worthy will grab most of the attention heading into the regular season, but don't be surprised if Sumataya and Wiley are extremely valuable pieces a couple of years from now. I agree. My grade is also B+ for Kansas City. So we move on now to their AFC West division rival, the Las Vegas Raiders. And with their picks, they selected Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia. Jackson Powers Johnson, inside-outside linebacker, Oregon. Delmar Glaze, inside-outside linebacker, Maryland. DeCamerion Richardson, cornerback, Mississippi State. Tommy Eichenberg, linebacker from The Ohio State University. Dylan Laube, running back from New Hampshire. Trey Taylor, safety from Air Force, and MJ Devonshire, cornerback out of Pittsburgh. Thanks to an early run on quarterbacks and tackles, Georgia tight end Brock Bowers fell to the Las Vegas Raiders at number 13. Getting Bowers there was a tremendous value for Las Vegas. Las Vegas had no reason to get overly aggressive in its pursuit of a quarterback. Aiden O'Connell showed promise as a rookie. The Raiders signed Gardner Minshew in free agency. Instead, the Raiders stayed put and landed one of the most dynamic playmakers in the draft. With Bowers, Devontae Adams, and Jaboki Myers in the fold, the 2024 Raiders offense should be a ton of fun. Las Vegas made another value pick by landing Jackson Powers Johnson in round 2. He'll help solidify the interior. His physical traits and makeup should allow him to start right away at either center or guard without being dependent on scheme, while providing Pro Bowl potential within his first contract. Las Vegas threw another dart at its offensive line with Maryland's Delmar Glaze in round 3. Glaze should be able to provide depth at tackle and guard early on and may compete with Thayer Munford Jr. at right tackle at some point in 2024. New general manager Tom Telesco came back and got some solid prospects on day 3. Linebacker Tommy Eichenberg was the top run-stopping linebacker in the draft. Let's see. Running back Dylan Laube is a shifty ball carrier who can complement Zamir White. And free agent addition Alexander Madison and DeCamarion Richardson can be a future starter at cornerback. The Raiders deserve a ton of credit for not reaching on a quarterback and instead selecting a tight end with perennial all-pro potential. Las Vegas also did a fine job of finding value throughout the draft, addressing some needs, and setting itself up to make incremental progress in 2024. After years of questionable picks and substantial reaches, this draft class should be considered a win by Raiders fans. B+ is my grade for the Las Vegas Raiders. MF, what says you?
Slight disagreement, but I'll get to that in a minute. In his first draft with the Raiders, the new general manager Tom Telesco clearly followed the approach, picking the best player available. That made the most surprising with Bowers at number 13. However, it was tough to argue adding such a unique playmaker. The Georgia tight end was ranked number 6 in many of the big boards. Powers Johnson was also a great value pick in the second round, as he was widely considered a first-round talent. Vegas Hall as a whole was impressive, but far better than what they were grown used to seeing from a team in the draft. They were still docking the Raiders' points of not aggressively going after a quarterback, even with Spencer Rattler available in day 3. Going into the season with Gardner Minshew as a starter probably won't cut it. I will say that it is a B-. And Anthony, let's go on to the next team.
And we are staying in the AFC. We round out the AFC West with the Los Angeles Chargers. And here's who they selected with their picks. Joe Alt, offensive tackle, Notre Dame. Ladd McConkey, wide receiver, Georgia. Junior Colson, linebacker from the national champion Michigan Wolverines. Justin Eboigbe, defensive lineman, Alabama. Tarheeb Still, cornerback, Maryland. Cam Hart, cornerback, Notre Dame. Kamani Vidal, running back from Troy. Brendan Rice, a wide receiver from USC. And Cornelius Johnson, wide receiver from your national champion Michigan Wolverines. MF, Los Angeles Chargers, how'd they do?
Many hoped the Chargers would get Justin Herbert, a superstar wide receiver, with the number 5 pick. But Jim Harbaugh likes to build through the trenches, and with an elite tackle potential like Alt on the board, it's tough to argue against the move. Los Angeles circled back on the receiver with McConkey on the second day, before upgrading the linebacker position with Carlson, a standout defender for Harbaugh at Michigan. There's really not to like about the first draft under the organization's new leadership, but the group has gone a long way towards helping the Chargers return to playoff contention. It was a solid B+ for the LA Chargers.
The Los Angeles Chargers might have been tempted to move down in a trade with a quarterback-needy team. Instead, they stood pat and took Notre Dame offensive tackle Joe Alt with the number 5 overall pick. It's an unsurprising pairing, given new head coach Jim Harbaugh's history of building his teams from the interior out. It was also a valuable pick. Alt is a special prospect due to his size, athletic ability, and polish for a player who will be only 21 years old throughout the duration of his rookie season. Alt should immediately pair with Rashawn Slater to give LA an elite tackle duo. The Chargers then traded up to the second pick of round 2, flipping a 4th-round pick for a 5th-rounder in the process to grab Georgia receiver Ladd McConkey. While McConkey might not immediately replace Keenan Allen's production as LA's number 1 receiver, he's a terrific route runner with speed who will aid Justin Herbert in the passing game tremendously. In round 3, Harbaugh grabbed one of his former players in Michigan linebacker Junior Colson. He should bring some system familiarity and help boost a defense that ranked 17th against the run last season. Running back Kamani Vidal can help boost LA's backfield, while receivers Cornelius Johnson and Brendan Rice, son of Hall of Famer Jerry Rice, give Harbaugh some intriguing developmental pass catchers with which to work. New general manager Joe Hortiz did excellent work in finding players who will fit Harbaugh's plan for rebuilding the franchise. He did it without sacrificing value or failing to find players to develop for the future. The Chargers entered the draft as a team that had a franchise quarterback and a lot of question marks beyond that. They might not be ready to contend right away, but they took a big step toward developing a new identity with this year's draft. Another one of my winners, A- is my grade for the Los Angeles Chargers. Next up, we move on to the other LA team, the Los Angeles Rams, and here's who they selected with their picks. Jared Verse, an edge from Florida State. Braden Fiskey, defensive line, Florida State. Here you go, MF, your boy, the heart and soul of your national champion Michigan Wolverines, running back Blake Corum. Cameron Kinchins, safety, Miami. Brennan Jackson, an edge, Washington State. Tyler Davis, defensive lineman from Clemson. Joshua Carty, kicker from Stanford. Jordan Whittington, wide receiver from Texas. Bo Limmer, inside-outside linebacker, Arkansas. And KT Leviston, inside-outside linebacker from Kansas State. The Los Angeles Rams hadn't used the first-round selection since taking then quarterback Jared Goff in 2016. With the number 19 overall pick this year, the Rams landed the top-ranked edge rusher in Florida State's Jared Verse, who is an explosive playmaker with a rangy 6'4", 254-pound frame and a relatively safe floor. Most of Verse's weaknesses are minor and fixable. The Rams needed to bolster their pass rush after losing Aaron Donald to retirement early in the offseason. Verse won't directly replace Donald's presence on the interior, but he'll help ensure that LA can still get after the quarterback. The Rams got another piece for their new look pass rush by snagging Verse's former teammate, Florida State defensive lineman Braden Fiskey, in round 2. The Rams had to trade up to secure Fiskey, but he's a tremendous athlete who moves well in space and can evolve into a key contributor alongside Verse and Kobe Turner. The Rams added another playmaker to their offense by grabbing Michigan running back Blake Corum in round 3, a productive, high-volume back with tremendous vision and receiving ability. Corum should pair with Kyron Williams to give LA a ground game that can wear down opposing defenses. Combined with Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, and the Rams' explosive passing attack, that's a scary thought for the rest of the NFC West. Miami's Cameron Kinchins has the potential to be a playmaking field commander on the back end of LA's defense. Along with free agent Cameron Curl, he'll help reload a safety room that parted with Jordan Fuller and John Johnson III earlier this offseason. Given the recent draft history of Les Snead and the Rams, LA probably uncovered a legitimate contributor or two on day 3. For example, Brennan Jackson has the physical tools to become a noteworthy player as a situational edge rusher. Joshua Carty could become LA's kicker of the future. The story of this Rams class, however, will involve Snead's first 4 selections. Each of them is a terrific fit for what Los Angeles does schematically, and all of them can improve the roster right away. For a team that exceeded expectations last season and returned to playoff contention, it's impossible to dislike what the Rams did throughout draft weekend. Another one of my big winners, solid A for the Los Angeles Rams. So, not much more to say. MF, your old buddy, the heart and soul of your team, Blake Corum, an LA Ram. Your thoughts on this class?
The Rams created some lofty expectations after knocking last year's draft out of the park. It's early, and it'll be tough to match the value of the Pro Bowl wide receiver in the 6th round. But this group could every be bit as good, and vice versa. Has nice value to upgrade, especially with the 19th pick overall. Corum is one of the top running backs in the draft class, with Kitchens as a playmaker who is likely overlooked due to some overblown concerns about his athleticism. Fisk is another interesting pick, essentially considering the profile of the explosive pass rusher filling the spot for the vacated by Aaron Donald. The real downside of the draft is the move to get him. Trading a 2025 second-round draft pick to move up 13 spots on day 2 is obviously bad process. The draft haul remains impressive, but it's not elite. But the overall value takes a hit considering this puzzling trade that they made. I'm sorry, Anthony. I disagree that they were one of the winners. I kind of felt like they were more middle of the pack. It was a B+ for the Los Angeles Rams. So, Anthony, it is yours.
Fair enough. MF, are you ready? It's your team. You're up next. You're on the clock. Here we go. It's now time for MF's team. Of course, that is the Miami Dolphins. And here's who the Miami Dolphins selected with their picks. Chop Robinson, edge from Penn State. Patrick Paul, offensive tackle from Houston. Jalen Wright, running back, Tennessee. Mohamed Kamara, edge from Colorado State. Malik Washington, wide receiver from Virginia. Patrick McMorris, a punter out of California. And Taj Washington, wide receiver out of USC. Of course, MF, your team made big headlines today. Odell Beckham Jr. is now a Miami Dolphin. Think about that. Him and Tyreek Hill. Oh my God, that is going to be a nightmare.
Don't forget Jalen Waddle as well. Waddle.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's a three-headed monster, man. I can't wait.
Yes. So you got OBJ. I know when I messaged that to you, I swear I easily heard a loud Pat McAfee like "Let's go" out of you. So all right, but we'll talk about OBJ and the rest of them, another day. But right now it's about the draft. So outside of the OBJ stuff, I know you want it. I know. I mean, hell, we would all love to be homers and give all of our respective teams A+ and call them the winners. But we got to be realistic. So
yeah, obviously.
What is your realistic grade for your team?
All right, your evaluation of the Dolphins draft possibly depends on what you're looking at for a prospect. Robinson and Paul have ton of potential, but there will likely be some development required for them becoming impact players in the NFL. Wright is an electrifying playmaker, but does he fit the Dolphins' backfield that already has Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert? Answer: yes. The whole upside of the selected was extremely interesting, but fair to wonder whether if this class will help Miami Champions' chances of capitalizing on the opportunity to compete now. Here's the thing that I think a lot of the prognosticators got wrong here. Malik Washington and Taj Washington are absolute bona fide stars. As a matter of fact, Taj Washington was the leading receiver for USC 1 year ago. And Jalen Wright now becomes the 5th fastest Miami Dolphin on the roster. Of course, with Waddle, with Tyreek Hill being the fastest, Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert, and now with Jalen Wright, who actually, oh, by the way, had a 4.38 in his 40 time. That makes him the 5th fastest Miami Dolphin to be added to the squad. Now, there are some questions that a lot of people feel like, will Chop Robinson be a deliverance? Will Patrick Paul be the offensive guy? But it looks like they might be moving him to guard. Would that be the right move? There's still some questions about why was a tight end not drafted in this position, because we are a little light on the draft on tight ends. All in all, it is a B minus for the Miami Dolphins. I thought they did far better than what the prognosticators have it. And overall, there are some concerns that I do have, because a couple of guys did come off with some injuries, and there is a little bit of some areas where we're going to be a little bit more worried about. But I thought all in all they did a fine job. So B minus, Anthony, it is yours.
The Miami Dolphins have no shortage of offensive playmakers. However, they were a candidate to take an interior lineman in round 1 after losing Connor Williams to an ACL injury in 2023 and Robert Hunt in free agency this offseason. However, the Dolphins instead took Penn State edge rusher Chop Robinson with a 21st pick. It was a sensible choice, considering Miami ranked 22nd in points allowed last season. Robinson may need some seasoning, but he has the baseline tools to become a major difference maker. He's a top-tier athlete, which combined with how well he sets up his pass rush moves, gives him a ton of potential as an edge rusher in the NFL. Getting Robinson was a solid value, even if it didn't address Miami's top need. Second-round pick Patrick Paul is a bit of a developmental tackle, and he won't address Miami's need on the interior. However, he has the size, 6'8" and 331, and physical tools to develop into a solid starter, and will give Miami insurance behind Teron Armstead. The 32-year-old Armstead will be back in 2024, but he hinted earlier this offseason that retirement could be on the not-too-distant horizon. Miami kicked off its day 3 by trading a 2025 third-round pick to move to 120th overall and grab Tennessee running back Jalen Wright. While running back wasn't a major need for the Dolphins, Wright's speed and breakaway ability fits perfectly with returning ball carriers Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert. Wideout Malik Washington might not possess the same game-changing speed of other Dolphin receivers, but his ability to move in traffic, separate, and high point the football should add a new dynamic to Miami's passing attack sooner than later. General Manager Chris Grier added some fine players who should bolster all three phases. However, he may have prioritized value over need too much, and the Dolphins still have question marks along the offensive interior and in their secondary. It's a slight disagreement, and please don't take this personally, MF, but it's a C+ for me. C+ is my grade for your Miami Dolphins. So with that, we move on to our next team, and that team is the Minnesota Vikings. And here's who they selected with their picks. J.J. McCarthy, the quarterback of the national champion Michigan Wolverines. Dallas Turner, an edge from Alabama. Kyrie Jackson, cornerback, Oregon. Walter Rousay, offensive tackle, Oklahoma. Will Reichert, the kicker from Alabama. Michael Juergens, inside-outside linebacker from Wake Forest. And Levi Drake Rodriguez, Texas A&M Commerce, defensive lineman. The Minnesota Vikings traded up to number 10 in a first-round deal with the New York Jets to land Michigan quarterback J.J. McCarthy. The most surprising thing about the selection is that Minnesota didn't have to trade higher to get its quarterback. McCarthy was the 4th-ranked quarterback. While a top 10 pick may be too high for what McCarthy's college tape might suggest, the Vikings only had to give up a pair of day 3 selections to get their guy. The surprise selection of Michael Penix to Atlanta may have pushed McCarthy into a more reasonable range for Minnesota. Regardless of how it happened, the Vikings got McCarthy without having to give up the 23rd overall pick, which they acquired from Houston in a pre-draft trade. Minnesota traded up again in round 1, landing Alabama's Dallas Turner. Turner has plenty of tools to work with to warrant a top 15 and maybe even a top 10 selection in this year's draft class. Adding Turner will help boost the pass rush that lost Danielle Hunter, but added Jonathan Greenard and Andrew Van Ginkel earlier in the offseason. General Manager Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah largely focused on developmental prospects on day 3, though. Cornerback Kyrie Jackson is a notable exception and could get on the field as early as week 1. 6th-round kicker Will Reichert should challenge John Parker Romo for the starting job in training camp. This class will be defined by Minnesota's 2 trades in round 1. The Vikings seemed quite comfortable with McCarthy as their quarterback of the future, It resisted the urge to overpay to land him. Turner may need a little seasoning, but he has the potential to blossom into a franchise player. Using both first-round picks instead of flipping them both for McCarthy was a win for Minnesota. A- is my grade for the Minnesota Vikings. So, MF, your other buddy, JJ McCarthy, Minnesota Viking. How'd the rest of the class do?
The Vikings were consistently linked to aggressively trading up scenarios for quarterbacks, no matter the player. They would have liked to only pair both first-round picks if they could get into the top 3. Once they were off the board, patience prevailed. Only needing to trade the 11th to the 10th to secure McCarthy is a major win for Minnesota. While the Michigan product was a polarizing prospect, there's no denying his potential at the next level. Keeping the second day one pick, allowing the Vikings to capitalize as an early run of offensive players to trade up as the top page edge rusher, and added day 3 value in Jackson, a physical presence who address a glaring cornerback need, and the call that couldn't have turned out much better. The NFC North will be a fascinating division. And oh, by the way, just for you guys out there, possibly the best division in the upcoming season is the NFC North. The black and blue division is back in a devastating way. Slight disagreement with Anthony Florio's rating. I give this a B+ for the Minnesota Vikings.
All right, very good. So, all right. Oh, unfortunately, I wish Michael Bullock was here because unfortunately he's not. It is time for us to move on to his team, that being the New England Patriots. And here's who they selected with their picks. With the number 3 overall pick, they selected Drake May, the quarterback from North Carolina. Or should I say, from North Carolina. Jalen Polk, wide receiver from Washington. Caden Wallace, offensive tackle from Penn State. Layden Robinson, inside-outside linebacker from Texas A&M. Wide receiver Javon Barker from UCF. Marcellus Dial, cornerback from South Carolina. Joe Milton III, quarterback from Tennessee. And Jaheim Bell from Florida State. MF, I know Michael Bullock sent us something in our chat earlier in the week. One of the locals, Michael Felger, gave the New England Patriots a draft grade of F. And I know if Bullock was here, I know Bullock would have. You know what Bullock would have.
Oh, he would have gone off. He absolutely would have torn Michael Felger apart, saying a whole bunch of things that
we disagree.
Unfortunately we're not allowed to say here live on air.
Yes, and I'm going to tell you right now, MF and I vehemently disagree with Mr. Felger's atrocious grade. So he gave it an F. Yeah, whatever, fine, whatever. But I'm going to tell you right now, MF and I, we're certainly not giving an F grade for the New England Patriots. But we are going to be honest, though. So with that being said, MF, good news or bad news from Mr. Bullock?
No, this is actually pretty good news. Logic prevailed as the Patriots stayed put at number 3 and got their potential franchise quarterback in Drake May. From there, the offense focus was clear. New England added a pair of pass catchers and a pair of offensive linemen with their draft stock as well. With their next 4 picks, it's easy to get excited pairing May with an elite arm talent with consistent pass catchers and exciting prospects like Polk and Baker. The Patriots still have a long way to go before returning to the playoffs, but the draft in the post-Bill Belichick era and the new era of Gerard Mayo was definitely a great start. Yeah, screw your F grade, Michael Felger, and you can take that to the bank. It's a B+ for Michael Bullock and the New England Patriots. So, Florio, it is yours.
There was plenty of buzz about the New England Patriots potentially trading the 3rd overall selection. However, it became clear that New England would not pass on its chance to land a new franchise quarterback without a massive offer. According to MassLive.com's Mark Daniels and Karen Guregian, the offers New England received were instead, quote-unquote, laughable. So the Patriots stayed put and grabbed Drake Maye. Maye could need some time to develop, but he will eventually help usher in a new era of Patriots football. After trading down once in round 2, the Patriots came back to get Maye some help in the form of Washington receiver Jalen Polk. While Polk might not be a true number 1 receiver in the NFL, his skill set will make him a massive asset for Maye. Polk is a ball-winning number 2 wide receiver in the NFL. He can dunk on DBs down the field and in the red zone, as well as serve as an underneath bully type on the outside to help move the chains. In round 3, the Patriots grabbed Penn State offensive tackle Caden Wallace, who brings 4 years of starting experience and will help New England protect its new quarterback. New England continued getting Maye some help on day 3 by adding the likes of lineman Layden Robinson and wideout Javon Baker. Coming back for strong-arm quarterback Joe Milton III in the 6th round may seem like an odd choice given the selection of Drake Maye. However, New England had a long history of drafting depth quarterbacks when Tom Brady was on the roster. Why would that change now that Maye is the new franchise quarterback? That's the hope, at least. Maye was the top signal caller on many big boards, and general manager Elliott Wolf was smart to secure him instead of trading the number 3 pick. The Patriots also did a good job of supporting Maye throughout the draft. This is another one of my winners. Michael Bullock's going to love me when I say this. Solid A for the New England Patriots. Very good draft. Contrary to what Mr. Michael Felder has to say. So take your F grade and shove it, big boy. That's all I'm going to say. So it's an A for me, solid A for me, a B plus from MF, and that's all there is to it. Next up is the New Orleans Saints, and here's who they selected with their picks. Taliese Fuaga, inside-outside linebacker, Oregon State. Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback, Alabama. Spencer Rattler, quarterback, South Carolina. Bub Means, wide receiver, Pittsburgh. Jalen Ford, linebacker, Texas. Christian Boyd, defensive line out of Northern Iowa. And Josiah Ezerim, offensive tackle, Eastern Kentucky. The New Orleans Saints used the 14th pick on Oregon State offensive lineman Taliese Fuaga. While Fuaga was scouted as a potential interior lineman and was the 4th-ranked prospect at that position, he'll likely play tackle for the Saints. Fortunately, Fuaga has the talent and versatility needed to address New Orleans' needs. Specifically, the Saints could use an upgrade over Trevor Penning on the left side and have questions about the future availability of right tackle Ryan Ramczyk with a knee injury. He just isn't quite where I was probably hoping he'd be, and really, quite frankly, where he was hoping he'd be. Head coach Dennis Allen told reporters about Ramczyk in March. Fuaga's positional flexibility will give the Saints options. The Saints traded up early on day 2 to secure Alabama cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. It was somewhat surprising to see McKinstry fall out of the 1st round, but the versatile defensive back should soon pair with Marshawn Lattimore to give New Orleans one of the better cornerback duos in the NFC. Moving up from number 45 to number 41 only cost a few late-round selections and ensured that New Orleans would exit the 2024 draft with 2 first-round caliber prospects. On day 3, the Saints took a flyer on South Carolina quarterback Spencer Rattler. It was a savvy selection since New Orleans doesn't know how many more quality years it can get out of 33-year-old veteran Derek Carr. Rattler has the tools to develop into an above-average starter at the NFL level, and he could well become the Saints' quarterback of the future. Getting him in round 5 was a tremendous value, especially with teams reaching for similar prospects all the way up in round 1. There was a time when Rattler was considered a first-round talent himself. General manager Mickey Loomis essentially nailed his top 3 selections while finding some late depth. That should cause Saints fans to feel good about the 2024 draft, even though New Orleans didn't enter it with a high volume of picks. Another one of my winners, solid A, another solid A for the New Orleans Saints. So with that, MF, you're great for New Orleans.
I disagree. No way. I'm not. It's not even close to A. It felt like a guarantee that the Saints would take an offensive lineman with their 1st-round pick and got themselves a good one. Fuaga is an imposing presence who should immediately step into as a starter at yet a tackle position. Given the possibility of the Lattimore trade, New Orleans needed a corner, and and McConsky was a steal with the ninth pick in the second round. Trades left them short in the mid rounds, so the talent of this group lacks some of the depth. But taking Rattler with the fifth round was the most interesting pick of the entire draft. The South Carolina project was ranked the 7th best quarterback in many of the big boards, has all the skills to become a starting signal caller at the next level. I totally disagree with you. This was not an A for me. This was a B for the New Orleans Saints. So, Anthony, it is yours.
And we move on now to the first of and now for the next two picks, it's all about the New York teams. And we started off with Big Blue, the New York Giants. And with their selection, their draft picks, they selected Malik Neighbors, wide receiver, LSU, Tyler Nubin, safety, Minnesota, Andrew Phillips, cornerback, Kentucky, Theo Johnson, tight end, Penn State, Tyrone Tracy Jr., running back from Purdue, and Darius Muasau, a linebacker out of UCLA. MF, New York Giants, Big Blue, how did they do?
The Giants, unlikely some incredibly desperate teams, resisting the urge to reach for a quarterback at the number 6 spot. The payoff, a true number 1 who is ranked as the 3rd best wide receiver in the draft class. Neighbors provides rare explosiveness that can elevate the New York Giants offense no matter who the quarterback is playing. The rest of the haul was not as nearly as exciting, but keep an eye on Durbin. Wiley contended as the top safety in the draft. The Minnesota product could be an impact playmaker for the Giants defense, who has quietly put themselves in position for a significant leap next season. B+ for the New York Football Giants. Florio, it is yours.
The New York Giants decided not to move away from quarterback Daniel Jones in round 1. They could have taken Michigan's J.J. McCarthy at number 6, but that would have been a reach. Instead, the Giants got Jones some help in the form of LSU wideout Malik Neighbors. While Neighbors isn't the most polished receiver in this class, he oozes playmaking ability and will give the Giants the home run threat that it hasn't provided Jones to this point. His combination of speed, quickness, and yards after the catch skills will translate into explosive plays right away. Neighbors was one of the top 3 receivers, and he'll fill a huge need for the Giants. We'll have to wait to see if New York's faith in Jones was warranted. In round 2, the Giants landed Minnesota's Tyler Nubin, who was the top-ranked safety. It was a sensible choice following the free agent departure of Xavier McKinney. It was also a tremendous value, as Nubin was a borderline first-round talent. While New York needed to continue bolstering its lackluster pass defense, taking Andrew Phillips in round 3 was a reach. He was the 235th ranked prospect. On day 3, the Giants landed tight end Theo Johnson, who will provide some insurance as 2023 trade acquisition Darren Waller continues to mull retirement. Tyrone Tracy Jr. will give New York another backfield option in the wake of Saquon Barkley's free agent exodus to the rival Philadelphia Eagles. We'll likely look back on this draft and gauge it on New York's decision to stick with Jones for at least another season. The 2025 quarterback class is not great, and contract cost is a poor reason to stick by an underwhelming signal caller. However, general manager Joe Schoen landed a couple of potential long-term contributions at the top of the draft, including a receiver who may help usher in New York's next franchise quarterback. Slight disagreement here. MF, you had it as a B+. I went just a smidgen lower. B- is my grade for the New York Giants. We go from Big Blue to Gang Green, the New York Jets. And here's who they selected with their picks. Bear with me on some of these name pronunciations. Oluwaseun Fashanu, offensive tackle, Penn State. Malachi Corley, wide receiver, Western Kentucky. Braylon Allen, running back, Wisconsin. Jordan Travis, quarterback from Florida State. Isaiah Davis, running back, South Dakota State. Quantez Stiggers, a cornerback from the Toronto Argonauts of the Canadian Football League. And Jalen Key, safety from Alabama. After trading down one spot, the Jets settled on Penn State offensive tackle Oluwaseun Fashanu. It was a somewhat surprising move since many thought the Jets would seek receiving help for Aaron Rodgers, and Georgia tight end Brock Bowers was still on the board. However, it was the right decision for the Jets. Their offensive line was a disaster in 2023. Rodgers is 40 years old, and stopgap tackle Tyron Smith has a lengthy injury history. Fashanu may provide depth to start, but he has the tools to be the Jets' longtime answer on the blind side. His ability to thrive on an island and pass protection right away with the tools, runway, and flashes necessary to make improvements as a run blocker indicates a franchise-caliber blindside protector who can at least be average in the run game. In round 3, the Jets traded up to the top selection to grab Western Kentucky receiver Malachi Corley. While Corley is compact at 5'11 and 215, he'll aid Rodgers and the Jets' offense by providing some tremendous after-the-catch ability. Some Jet fans may have preferred another offensive playmaker in round 1, but working to protect Aaron Rodgers first was the right call. They'll still get their playmaker in Corley. They may have landed another in Wisconsin running back Braylon Allen in round 4. Allen is a powerful runner who should complement Breece Hall well. He might not help Rodgers directly, but he'll help maintain some offensive balance and keep pressure off an aging quarterback who is coming off a torn Achilles. 5th-round pick Isaiah Davis will add more depth to New York's backfield. Florida State quarterback Jordan Travis was having a great 2023 campaign. It looked like a future NFL player before suffering a devastating season-ending leg injury. He's undersized at 6'1 and 200 pounds, but he has a strong skill set and might have been a day 2 pick if not for the injury. In Travis, the Jets may have found their signal caller to develop behind Rodgers. The Travis pick aside, this was largely a draft to support Rodgers and a potential playoff run in 2024. General Manager Joe Douglas mostly succeeded in that approach while not completely ignoring the future. B+ is my grade for the New York Jets. So, MF, your grade for the Jets, Jets.
Nobody would have been surprised if the Jets ignored the future of the offensive line in favor of giving Aaron Rodgers yet another playmaker. Credit is where it's due for doing the right thing. Fashanu is the best pass protector in the draft class, and they still managed to get the quarterback a receiver. Corley's ability to catch makes him a fascinating fit along with Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams. Allen and Davis are interesting running back prospects, but doubling up on the position with Breece Hall on the roster feels like a poor asset management. It's still a strong class, but could have been a lot better than given. Solid B for the Jets.
All right, and we move on now to our next team. We go from the New York teams to the Pennsylvania teams. First up, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles. And here's who they selected with their picks. Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback, Toledo. Cooper DeJean, cornerback, Iowa. Jalix Hunt, an edge from Houston Christian. Will Shipley, running back, Clemson. Aeneas Smith, wide receiver, Texas A&M. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., linebacker, Clemson. Trevor Keegan, inside-outside linebacker from your national champion, Michigan Wolverines. Johnny Wilson, wide receiver, Florida State. And Dylan McMahon, inside-outside linebacker from North Carolina State. MF, fly Eagles fly or not so much?
The Eagles crushing the draft is becoming something as a yearly ritual. Holly Roseman enters this week needing to make some major upgrades in the defensive backfield and did that exactly with a pair of players that should go a long way by Eagles on the clock. Mitchell is a supremely gifted athlete who is considered the best corner in the class. And while DeJean is one of the most intuitive playmakers with versatility to operate on either the safety or the corner, Hunt is raw, but he has unique athletic traits that will allow him to plenty of pass rush upside. And Shipley may not profile as an early down player at the next level, but doesn't need to be. Saquon Barkley will lead the way. The Clemson star will be a versatile as a situational pass catcher and maybe even a big cog for the new rules, kickoff rules, as it pertains to the special teams. Anthony, this is the team that won the draft, in my opinion. A+ for the Philadelphia Eagles. Definitely fly, Eagles, fly. Yours.
Whoa. Okay. The Philadelphia Eagles once again had a top talent fall to them near the bottom of round 1. A year after landing Georgia linebacker Nolan Smith with a number 30 overall pick, the Eagles snagged Toledo cornerback Quinyon Mitchell at number 22. The pick was a ridiculous value for Philadelphia, and it also filled a significant need. Mitchell will immediately bolster a pass defense that needed cornerback help and finished last season ranked 31st in yards allowed. While he has a small school background, he was the talk of the Senior Bowl and has been on the rise ever since. At absolute worst, Mitchell will provide valuable depth in the secondary and on special teams as a rookie. Philly didn't let anyone fall to it in round 2, instead trading a pair of second-round picks to move up for cornerback Cooper DeJean. The former Hawkeye is an athletic, versatile defensive back who easily could have been the Eagles' pick at number 22. The value of the pick helped offset the cost of the trade. Houston Christian's Jalix Hunt is a small school edge prospect who may need time to develop, but the Eagles are well positioned to give him time and maximize his athletic potential. General manager Howie Roseman uncovered some terrific depth on day 3 in the form of running back Will Shipley, receiver Aeneas Smith, and receiver Johnny Wilson. Free agent addition Saquon Barkley has a significant injury history, and the Eagles have long needed a reliable third receiver behind A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Shipley, Wilson, and Aeneas Smith could all fill notable roles as rookies. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. was the 77th. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. could develop into a regular contributor in Philadelphia's defense. He should be viewed as one of the best value picks of day 3. It was another very strong draft for Roseman and the Eagles, with bargains through and through and multiple future starters likely in the mix. I agree. This is also my winner, although there's another team that that's just as high that I'm just as high on. We're gonna get to them in a second. So I agree with you, MF. A+ is my grade for the Philadelphia Eagles as well. And the other Pennsylvania team is up next, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. With their picks, they selected Troy Fautanu, outside linebacker, Washington; Zach Frazier, inside-outside linebacker, West Virginia; Roman Wilson, wide receiver from your national champion Michigan Wolverines; Peyton Wilson, linebacker from North Carolina State; Mason McCormick, inside-outside linebacker, South Dakota State; Logan Lee, defensive lineman out of Iowa; and Ryan Watts, a cornerback out of Texas. The Pittsburgh Steelers landed one of the draft's most versatile offensive linemen by taking Washington's Troy Fautanu with the 20th overall pick. Fautanu was projected by some as an interior NFL lineman, but he'll likely be able to play inside or out. That's important for Pittsburgh, which has needed to solidify its offensive interior, but could also use an upgrade at left tackle. Dan Moore Jr. was responsible for 3 penalties and allowed 8 sacks last season, according to Pro Football Focus. Fautanu was a smart choice for the Steelers because he'll provide them with options. Pittsburgh can try him at left or right tackle, moving Broderick Jones over from the right side, or kick him inside in a worst-case scenario. Pittsburgh came back in round 2 and filled its other top need by landing West Virginia's Zach Frazier. He's a pro-ready prospect who will help solidify the interior and provide some stability up front for new quarterbacks Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. He projects as a long-term dependable starter at the pivot. The Steelers have a knack for finding top receiving talent in the middle rounds, and they got another good one in Michigan's Roman Wilson. Wilson brings a tremendous blend of physical traits and positional versatility to the offense. NC State's Peyton Wilson carries some serious injury concerns that caused him to fall to the 3rd round. He's a borderline first-round talent if he stays healthy, though. General manager Omar Khan found some players on day 3 who can stick with the 53-player roster. In particular, Mason McCormick has a chance to stick as a long-term backup along the offensive interior. On paper, Khan and the Steelers knocked this draft out of the proverbial park. Fautanu, Frazier, and Roman Wilson mesh perfectly with the old-school Steelers identity that Pittsburgh seems eager to rediscover. Meanwhile, Peyton Wilson could become the steal of the draft if he can stay healthy throughout his NFL career. This was a masterful exercise in allowing the draft to develop while still marrying need with value. I was very high on Philadelphia as well, MF. I know you had Philly as your top pick, but for me, this is my ultimate winner. This is the team that I felt was the winner of the NFL draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers. A+ for Pittsburgh. Philly is my number 2. So I'm just laying it out there. Pittsburgh, my winner of the NFL draft. What says UMF?
It's actually funny because you got Pittsburgh as your winner and Philly as your second. I got Philly as the winner. Pittsburgh's my number 2. Chicago, Detroit, and then I believe, hold on, let me see. I think it went, Chicago, Detroit, and I'm trying to remember who the 5th team is, but there was one more team that rounded my top 5. And Pittsburgh actually did get an A rating from me as well. Just like last year, Pittsburgh comes out of the draft weekend with one of the league's most impressive hauls. Botnu and Frazier should immediately start on the offensive line, filling need at right tackle and center respectively. Roman Wilson fills the need at a speedy wide receiver, and Peyton Wilson is a likely starter that should be considered as one of the best value picks in the draft. From there it was adding to the depth across the board. Some teams just do it better than others. Second overall, A+. I'm with you, Anthony Florio. Pittsburgh did an amazing job. And I know Tone Diggs from the Pat McAfee show, diehard Yinzer and blue-collar Pittsburgh Steelers fan, was very happy as well, and has rightfully so should have a right to be happy because, my friend, I tip my cap to you, boy. Your team did really damn good with this draft. This was amazing. So, Florio, it is yours.
We're almost there, friends. We got 5 teams left, and we move on to our... Yeah, I know, it's a lot, but we got 5 more to go. And we move on now to your reigning, defending, undisputed NFC champion San Francisco 49ers. With their picks, they selected Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver from Florida, Renardo Green, cornerback, Florida State, Dominic Puny, inside-outside linebacker, Kansas, Malik Mustafa, safety from Wake Forest, Isaac Guerrero, running back from Louisville, Jacob Cowing, a wide receiver from Arizona, Jarrett Kingston, inside-outside linebacker, USC, and Tatum Bethune, linebacker, Florida State. All right, MF, your grade for the NFC champions.
This probably seems like another strange draft class for the 49ers. There are hints of weirdness, as come to expect, like not resisting the urge to take another running back. But this group is different. Pearsall is a feisty athlete who should be a strong fit for Kyle Shanahan's offense, with or without the current crop of superstars. Green addresses a major need at corner, and Punai is an underrated prospect who could play guard or tackle. There's 3 likely day 1 starters, but don't sleep on Musumura either. Perhaps the best tackling safety in the draft. He could push for an early role in his career. However, this group can go a long way of helping the Niners maintain their position as one of the true contenders in the National Football League and propel themselves as the favorite from the NFC to once again represent that conference in the Super Bowl. B- for the San Francisco 49ers. Florio, it is yours.
There was some pre-draft buzz that the San Francisco 49ers might trade one of their top receivers to make a move up in the draft. The 49ers have had conversations with teams, including with one picking in the top 10, about trading either of their prized wide receivers, Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel, in an effort to move up in the first round, per sources. San Francisco stayed put at number 31 and grabbed Florida receiver Ricky Pearsall, who will provide some flexibility at the position. If Samuel or Ayuk are on the move, Pearsall can step into a prominent role. If they stay, Pearsall will give the 49ers a capable third option. It's fair to question the value of the selection, though. San Francisco probably reached for Florida State cornerback Renardo Green, who was a very low prospect, but the pick does help fill one of the 49ers' only roster deficiencies. Green may need some seasoning, but he is a tremendous athlete who should provide valuable depth as a rookie. Third-round pick Dominic Puny will bolster the right side of San Francisco's offensive line, which was a problem area in 2023. The former Kansas standout should provide depth behind right tackle Colton Mikovits while competing for the starting right guard spot as a rookie. San Francisco got some sound depth pieces on day 3, including safety Malik Mustafa, running back Isaac Garendo, and receiver Jacob Cowing. The 49ers didn't have many glaring needs, but general manager John Lynch did a nice job of adding insurance late in the draft. Lynch might not have gotten the best value at the top of the draft, but he did address needs while fleshing out the roster in the later rounds. It wasn't a bad strategy for a team that came painfully close to winning the Super Bowl, even if it wasn't a home run draft overall. Solid B is my grade for the San Francisco 49ers. And we're not talking basketball when I say this, but we're in the Final Four. We got four teams left, and we stay in the NFC West. Next up is the Seattle Seahawks. With their picks, they selected Byron Murphy II, defensive line from Texas, Christian Haynes, inside-outside linebacker, Connecticut, Tyrese Knight, linebacker, UTEP, A.J. Barner, tight end from the national champion Michigan Wolverines, Nehemiah Pritchett, cornerback, Auburn, Satoa Loamia, inside-outside linebacker, Utah, DJ James, cornerback, Auburn, and Michael Jarrell, offensive tackle from Findlay. Seattle Seahawks took the second defensive prospect in the draft by selecting Texas's Byron Murphy II with the 16th overall pick. He should be a great pickup for Seattle under new head coach Mike Macdonald. Macdonald had a difference-making defensive tackle in Justin Matabuki during his time as the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator. Murphy has the potential to be one in Seattle. With a relentless motor, quick first step, and a compact 6'1", 297-pound frame, Murphy should boost the Seahawks defense that ranked 30th overall and 25th in points allowed last season. Seattle got an incredible value by grabbing Christian Haynes in round 3. The UConn product is an experienced interior lineman who should start sooner than later. Haynes is a hard-nosed, mentally sharp, and experienced player with good play strength to bolster an O-line room as a quality interior depth piece. In Seattle, Haynes should push for a starting role right away. He should improve a ground game that ranked 27th in yards per carry last season. General manager John Schneider picked up a few promising players on day 3. Linebacker Tyrese Knight has the tools and the upside to develop into a future starter, and tight end A.J. Barner is an intriguing trade space prospect to develop behind Noah Fant. The Seahawks didn't do anything incredibly flashy over the weekend, but they managed to address a few critical needs early while also landing arguably the top defensive player in this class. With no second-round pick and a lack of late depth in this draft, Schneider should be commended for potentially coming out of it with a handful of potential future starters. Solid B, my grade for the Seattle Seahawks. MF, it's yours.
Seattle took full advantage of the early run of offensive players by sitting tight at 16 and getting one of the best defensive pass rushers in the draft. Overall return for the class, it was less than last year. Leonard Williams trade left with the Seahawks without a pick in the second round, but Hayes is a player worth watching. The UConn product, stout guard with the talent to step in as a day one starter, addressing a need to round out a young, fine offensive group. It is a little bit of a slight disagreement, B- for the Seattle Seahawks. So, Anthony, it is yours.
3 teams left, and the next team up is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And here's who they selected with their picks. Graham Barton, inside-outside linebacker from Duke. Chris Braswell, an edge from Alabama. Tyke Smith, a safety from Georgia. Jalen McMillan, wide receiver, Washington. Bucky Irving, running back from Oregon. Elijah Klein, inside-outside linebacker from UTEP. And Devin Culp, tight end from Washington. MF, your grades for Tampa Bay.
The Bucs quietly had a strong weekend. Martin is one of the most impressive offensive lines prospect who, while finishing his career in Duke as a left tackle, figures to play center in the NFL. His unique transition, to be sure, with his combination of athleticism, precision, skills, and physicality, could give him a Pro Bowl potential on the inside. Braswell was the 6th-ranked edge rusher, and in addition to the Tampa Bay's pass rush group, McMillan could be a productive slot receiver along with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and Irving's pass catching skills could make him a great complement for Rashel White. This group could help the Bucs take that next step forward in the NFC. It's a solid B for the Buccaneers. So, Florida, what's yours?
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers did the sensible thing at number 26 and took Duke interior lineman Graham Barton. While fans may not get excited about picking a center, Barton has the tools and the technique to be a stalwart at the position. Barton is a stubborn, sticky blocker with a short area quickness, play strength, and competitive toughness to make a successful transition inside and become a solid, dependable starter right away at guard or center in a multiple run scheme. By grabbing Barton, the Buccaneers have likely found their long-term replacement for retired center Ryan Jensen. Given the commitment Tampa has made to Baker Mayfield and its offense as a whole, taking him was a logical decision. Tampa filled another need in round 2 by grabbing Alabama edge rusher Chris Braswell. While Braswell needs to work on his run defense, he should contribute early as a situational edge rusher that can help fill the void created by Shaquille Barrett's departure. In round 3, the Bucs took versatile Georgia defensive back Tyke Smith. With an ability to play safety or in the slot, Smith should boost the back end of Tampa's defense, possibly as early as week 1. Washington wideout Jalen McMillan will give Tampa another reliable receiving option in 2024, as his secure hands and savvy route running should immediately translate. He'll potentially be a candidate to eventually replace impending 2025 free agent Chris Godwin. Bucky Irving should help boost the backfield that was the league's least productive in 2023, and Devin Culp might give Mayfield a down-the-field target at tight end. Tampa was a playoff team in 2023, albeit a flawed one. General manager Jason Leach did a lot of work to keep the roster together and did an even better job of strengthening it throughout the draft. The Falcons may be the new favorites in the NFC South due to their quarterback additions. However, the Bucs are well positioned to stay at the top. Another one of my top teams, A- for Tampa Bay. 2 teams left. Next up is the Tennessee Titans. With their picks, they selected J.C. Latham, offensive tackle, Alabama, T'Vondre Sweat, defensive lineman, Texas, Cedric Gray, linebacker, North Carolina, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., cornerback from Louisville, Jaquan Jackson, wide receiver, Tulane, James Williams, linebacker from Miami, and Jalen Harrell, an edge from the national champion Michigan Wolverines. Tennessee Titans are expected to build around second-year quarterback Will Levis in 2024. Improving one of the league's most lackluster offensive lines was a must. Taking Alabama's J.C. Latham at 7th overall should help with that. He needs added patience to counterbalance his attacking play style, but he has the tools, skill set, and runway to start in year 1 with Pro Bowl potential within his first contract. Latham was ranked behind Penn State's Olamuyiwa Fashanu, so there may be some debate about the choice. However, it's hard not to love the upside Latham brings. He'll quickly upgrade Levis's protection in Tennessee. In round 2, the Titans took a flyer on Texas's T'Vondre Sweat, who carried some maturity concerns after being arrested on suspicion of driving while intoxicated early last month. Because of those concerns and concerns over his playing weight, some teams viewed him as a day 3 prospect, according to ESPN's Matt Miller. The 6'4.5", 366-pound defender may not fit the mold of a modern-day NFL defensive tackle. He offers little in the pass rush and has carried effort questions. He's a powerful space eater who can contribute early, at least on a rotational basis, but it was an odd gamble for a Titan team that ranked 7th in yards allowed per carry last season. General manager Rand Carthon found a few intriguing prospects late. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. has the potential to start at cornerback at some point in 2024, but this class isn't likely to push Tennessee into the playoff conversation right away. Latham addresses arguably the team's biggest need, but the Titans still have questions in the secondary and at edge rusher. In a division with C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Trevor Lawrence, that's a problem. Sweat was a risky luxury pick who doesn't help Levis or a pass defense that ranked 23rd in net yards per pass attempt allowed last season. A solid C for the Tennessee Titans. MF, your grade.
Early impressions of the Titans draft class was fairly disappointing. Latham fills a massive need, but the Alabama prospect was ranked 7th in offensive linemen in this draft. Voltile Sweat was a massive nose tackle who could be a dominant run on defenders, but it's tough to project much pass rush upside right now. He was also arrested for the DWI earlier this month, before visiting teams. The Titans made some interesting additions later in the draft, including Gray in the 4th round, but the tough day 3 picks to to compensate for the lack of early value, this group doesn't quite mean some excitement for the rest of the Tennessee offseason acquisitions. Yes, I totally agree. This was a C, Anthony. There is, I believe, one team to go, and that, I believe, is the Washington Commanders from the NFC East.
It is indeed the Washington Commanders from the NFC East, our final team. And here are their picks. They had the number 2 overall pick, and they selected Jaden Daniels, quarterback out of LSU. Jer'Zhan Newton, defensive lineman from Illinois. Mike Sanderstill, cornerback from the national champion Michigan Wolverines. Ben Sinnott, tight end out of Kansas State. Brandon Coleman, offensive tackle from TCU. Luke McCaffrey, wide receiver from Rice. Jordan McGee, linebacker from Temple. Dominique Hampton, safety from Washington. And Javonte Jean-Baptiste, an edge from Notre Dame. MF, Washington Commanders. Take it home.
All right. Daniels wasn't our second quarterback in the draft class, but it's tough to argue with the Commanders taking a big swing on a big upside with Cliff Kingsbury offense. Newton, our top-ranked interior lineman, was an early steal in the 2nd round. And Swarovski's athleticism, physicality, and playmaking traits are bound to make him a fan favorite in the secondary. Washington should have probably been more aggressive upgrading the offensive line, but getting Coleman at the top of the 3rd round made for a sneaky good value over at the end of that end. Overall, it was a strong start to Washington's rebuilding process. They were my number 5 team in the draft, an A for the Washington Commanders. My top 5, just to let you guys know, just to get it out of the way: Philadelphia 1, Pittsburgh 2, Chicago 3, Detroit 4, Washington. My top 5. Florio, it is yours.
LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels. Let me tell you, far from a perfect prospect. However, he will provide excitement to the Washington Commanders offense and does not carry a significant amount of risk. Daniels' average arm talent and inconsistent accuracy may limit his ceiling, but it's hard to imagine him totally flaming out. Adding Daniels to an offense that features Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz, and rookie 3rd-round pick Luke McCaffrey should bring some serious excitement to Washington in 2024. Washington got a tremendous value by grabbing Illinois defensive lineman Jer'Zhan Newton at the top of round 2. Newton is a legitimate playmaker who will immediately upgrade a defense that ranked 32nd overall last season. Washington also added Michigan cornerback Mike Sanderstill in round 2. While Sanderstill may not have the length at 5'9" and 182 to consistently play on the perimeter, he'll aid a defense that allowed more passing yards than any other team last season. Tight end Ben Sinnott was much more of a reach later in round 2. However, TCU's Brandon Coleman was the top tackle remaining on the board at the top of round 3 and will provide depth or possibly start for a line that surrendered 65 sacks in 2023. General manager Adam Peters found a few interesting defensive prospects on day 3, including linebacker Jordan McGee and Javonte Jean-Baptiste. That should make new head coach Dan Quinn happy. However, it would have been wise to throw a few more darts at an offensive line that was one of the worst in the league last season, especially in a draft that featured a ton of line depth. Everything will come down to Daniels for Washington. If he proves worthy of the number 2 pick, no one will remember the rest of this class. If he struggles, it'll be fair to wonder if Washington could have done more to support him. Slight disagreement, B+ is my grade for the Washington Commanders. So my winner was the Pittsburgh Steelers, with the Philadelphia Eagles right behind, Chicago Bears, Detroit Lions, and I'll have to think about who to round up the top 5 with, but those are easily my top 4, no doubt about it. Well, top 3 easy: Pittsburgh, Philly, Chicago. Simple. So with that will put the bow on this 2024 NFL Draft Recap edition of TXN Sports World. We want to thank you all so very much for tuning in and hanging out with us all this time. God bless you all, and we appreciate your sticking with us all this time. And we do it all again tomorrow night at 10:30 over on MF's channel, Brace Fan 95. a special edition of Talking Wrestling TXN. WWE has invaded France. We will start with Friday Night SmackDown, and we will review WWE Backlash. We'll get into that tomorrow. And if and only if Michael Bullock is on, we're hopeful he will be. If he is, we will hopefully, time permitting, have time to do the Bruins beat. Game 7 for the Boston Bruins against the Toronto Maple Leafs. The two most exciting words in sports tomorrow night. So that'll all be tomorrow night. Monday night, we do it all again, Ridiculously Raw, right here on the Tone 25. Monday Night Raw. And I will have my review. I will have the results of the TNA Under Siege special that was on TNA Plus earlier this evening. And from there, time permitting, we will also have the return of the Ranger Roundup, the Round 2 edition, as we'll get into Game 1 against the Carolina Hurricanes. And that will be on Monday. Wednesday Night Madness with MF, as it will be NXT, AEW Dynamite. We'll see if we have the Ranger Roundup and or the Celtic Chatter Bruins beat. We'll let you know. And I believe now, I have not heard any confirmation yet, but there is a possibility that this Thursday could be the unveiling of the 2024 NFL schedule. We will keep you posted on that. And if that's the case, then we'll wait and see on that. But and then of course we got and then we'll take it from there after that. So that's it. So until tomorrow night for Talking Wrestling TXN over on MF's channel, RaceFan95, it's Anthony Florio here for Good Old MF Michael Fletcher, and in spirit, Michael Bullock, and of course, always and forever, the First Lady Dee Dee Woodson. You the routine, everybody. Thumbs up. Talk to you later. Yeah. Throw it up, Fortune 4 style. Bye for now, my friends. God bless. Be good to each other. Have a blessed Saturday. And until tomorrow night for that Talking Wrestling TXN special, you've been watching the 2024 NFL Draft Recap Edition of TXN Sports World right here on the Tone 25 on YouTube and StreamYard.com. For everybody who has been a part of this one, for now, Anthony Florio, so long, and bye, everybody. Bye.